ELYSE TV.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Raven, and today I'm doing a totally different type of video, as you can tell by the title, but I think it's going to be a pretty interesting one. So let's just get straight into it. The title is a question that I get so often. Am I mixed? What are you mixed with? What are you? What race are you? Are you biracial? Is your mom white? Is your dad white? Just any way, shape, and form. I get this question so much, whether it be online, in YouTube comments, or Instagram comments, or actually in person. I've had so many people, just strangers, walk up to me and ask me, what are you? Or people that I'm just barely meeting, that's one of the first questions that they ask me. And I know there's probably a lot of people watching this video right now who have experienced the same thing. They get asked the same question all the time. And honestly, it can actually kind of get pretty annoying because it's just so repetitive, and you get tired of explaining it, and you get tired of people assuming certain things about you. And yeah, so it can get annoying. And you know, I try to explain it as much as possible. I try to reply to comments and stuff, but I thought, why not just make a whole video about it? Why not just set the story straight once and for all? So I took the liberty of getting my DNA tested to see what exactly my ethnicity was. I did the Ancestry.com DNA test, and this is not sponsored. I did the test all just, you know, on my own. I paid for it myself. I just wanted to do this to really and truly find out exactly, well, you know, as exact as they can get it, what my breakdown was in terms of my ethnicity, because I always kind of knew, or I thought that I knew, just from what my parents have told me, just from, you know, obviously looking at the other people in my family. But I thought it would be really interesting to actually test my DNA and get a complete breakdown of what I got going on in terms of ethnicity. So I'm literally just going to read you my receipts, read you my results. This is a breakdown from my DNA. I spit into a tube. I mailed the tube off to get my literal DNA literally tested. So this is a breakdown starting with the actual continent, and then they break it down even further into different countries, and they try to give you a percentage from each country. I'm also going to link down below a link to a blog post. I decided to go into more detail on my blog and tell you guys the full story, you know, as much as I know in terms of my family background, in terms of more details on this. If you guys really want to know like the whole entire story, definitely check out my blog post. I will have that link down below. But yeah, let's get to the results. I literally feel like I'm Amari right now, and I'm like, are you the father? Let's find out. But no, so the first biggest percentage is 55%. And that is from, you guessed it, Africa. That should be no surprise. I identify as African American. Every time somebody asks me, what are you? What race are you? What ethnicity are you? Like, what do you identify as? I always say African American, or typically I'll just say black. I'm black, I'm African American. I don't say, oh, I'm mixed. I don't say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. I don't try to explain this whole entire thing. I just say I'm black, because that's what I identify as. And so it's no surprise that the biggest percentage, 55%, is from Africa. Going more specific into the different countries of Africa, the biggest one is the Ivory Coast / Ghana. That's also not surprising because that is where most slaves came from. Obviously, we had this thing called slavery happen here in America. That is how my family and I got to this country. So it's really not surprising to see that it's from the Ivory Coast, but it breaks down even further into some from Congo, some from Mali, some from Nigeria, and a couple of other regions in Africa as well. So 55% Africa. Cool, we know that. But that's kind of like, wait, that's only like half. So what's like the rest of it? Well, the next biggest chunk is probably not going to be surprising to people, but it's from Europe. So 42% of my ethnicity, based on this right here, is from Europe. And it breaks it down into 11% from Great Britain, 7% from the Iberian Peninsula, 5% from East Europe, 5% from Scandinavia, we have 4% from Ireland, 4% from West Europe, 4% from Italy, we have 4% from Russia, we have a little bit of European Jewish. It's like a little bit of everything, but mostly Great Britain. So 55 from Africa, 42 from Europe, so that gives us approximately 3% that's unspoken for, and basically that little tiny 3% is made up of Native American and Asian. So like around like 1% of Native American, 1-ish% of Asian. So when I got these results, I wasn't surprised about the Africa, I wasn't surprised about the Europe, but I was surprised about the Native American because growing up, I always thought that I was more Native American than that. For it to be like maybe 1 or 2% Native American, that kind of surprised me because I had always heard stories in my family of, oh, you know, such and such is Native American, this person in your family is Native American. That was just something that I thought was in my DNA, but it's actually a much smaller amount than I thought, so that's interesting. So my mom and my dad have both already gotten their DNA tested from Ancestry.com, and the way that Ancestry.com works is they test your DNA, they give you your results, but they also pair you up with other people who have also used the website and stuff like that. So you start making connections with other people and you start being able to piece together your family tree and maybe fill in some blanks that you didn't know just from, you know, hearsay in your family. So my mom and my dad doing that, they have been able to piece together a lot of history in our family history, and actually probably a lot more than typical, because you know, with slavery, it was only up until a certain point that really a lot of Black people can really even search their family history, because up until a certain point they weren't even listed on the census because slaves were listed as property, not people. So it's not really that much written history that we can even search through. But my parents have actually found quite a bit of information to be able to kind of piece together the family tree and see how all this makes sense. So based on the stories that we've heard from family and stuff like that, which has now been confirmed by the DNA results, we now know that on my mom's side, she has a great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, I don't know how many greats, don't quote me on that, but a great-great-great-great-grandfather who was named Alan Campbell. I have my notes here so I don't get it mixed up. So Alan Campbell was a slave owner. He was a plantation owner, he was a slave owner. He ended up having a son with one of his slaves. So obviously now his son is half white, half Black, and the son's name was Wellington. So Wellington Campbell was my mom's great-great-great-great-grandfather. So that kind of tells you where some of that European percentage comes from, the slave owner. And on my dad's side, he also had a great-great-great-grandfather who was white. His name was Richard Henry Bellamy, and he was actually a Civil War hero on the Confederate side. So yeah, but he ended up having children with a Black woman as well. So basically on both sides, on my mom's side and my dad's side, during slavery, there were white men who ended up having Black children, or mixed race children, I guess. So that trickled down, and that is how I get a lot of my European percentage in terms of my ethnicity. So that's what we know, that's what we've been able to prove using DNA on my mom's side and my dad's side with those two grandfathers. We don't know as much about the grandmothers or, you know, a lot of other people in the family, but obviously there's going to be similar types of things where you get that European mixing in. So I guess to answer the big question, am I mixed? Technically the answer would be yes, because you know, if you look at my ethnicity breakdown, it's kind of like half and half, African, European. For me personally, just my personal little opinion, this is not scientific or anything like that, but I like to just break it down into biracial and mixed. If somebody says that they're biracial, I'm going to think, okay, one of your parents is clearly this, one of your parents is clearly that. Two totally different, you know, culture, races came together, they made you, so now you're like a mix of two races, ethnicities, I guess is the proper way to put it. And so that would be biracial. Bi means two come together and make you. Cool. And then when you say mixed, when I think about it, I'm like, almost everybody is mixed. It's very rare for you to have a completely, you know, singular, where it's only one ethnicity, only one country, only one thing, to where you come out as like, I'm just one thing, I'm not mixed. It's pretty rare for that to happen. So when you say mixed, I'm kind of like, okay, everybody's mixed. What do you mean by that? You have to be more specific. Do you mean biracial, where if you clearly look at my parents, you're clearly going to see two different ethnicities? That doesn't describe me, because if you look at both of my parents, you're going to see two African American people. I will insert pictures here and here, my mother and my father. It doesn't look like they're two totally different ethnicities or anything like that. So that's why I always, identify as African American, because African American plus African American equals African American in my mind. So that's just the way that I think of it. But like I said, it's all just personal preference, personal choice. This isn't science. This isn't by the book definition of the dictionary or anything like that. That's just the way I like to think of it. That's just what's easiest for me to like explain to people, I guess. And honestly, this situation is something that a lot of African Americans can probably relate to. A lot of them probably have very similar family trees when it comes to slavery, slave owners, having children with slaves, and all that whole thing. It's very common in our history that that's the way that it happens. It doesn't necessarily mean every time you see somebody with fair skin that one of their parents is white. Like, we have to get that out of our minds, that you have to be biracial, you have to have a white parent to look a certain way, or there's just all these assumptions, all these it's ignorant to think that, because we are all so mixed in so many different ways. And the way that DNA even works, period, you never know what you're gonna get. You never know what traits are going to be passed down. So you can't just look at somebody and assume their whole family history just by looking at how the color of their skin is, or the texture of their hair, or the color of their eyes. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. You really have to dig deeper and find out the real story. So let me know in the comments down below, what's your family history like? What's your ethnicity? What's your background? And do you consider yourself to be mixed or not? What do you identify as? What do you say when someone comes up to you and says, what are you? What's your ethnicity? Or when you're filling out one of those forms and they say white, black, or other, which box do you check? Do you check other? Do you try to be super technical about it? Do you try to just keep it simple? I'm interested to know how you guys handle this question. What are your thoughts on it? How do you define it? Because I know everyone defines it in different ways. So leave your comments down below. I want to see what you guys are all about. I want to hear about your family history, because I think this stuff is really, really interesting, because you start learning that we're all just so mixed and so different and so diverse, and that's what makes us unique. So yeah, that's me. That's my ethnicity, like 100% down to the percentage. That's my ethnicity, for anybody who was curious. Like I said, it's pretty interesting. You guys should do it. You guys should get your DNA tested. It's like, I forgot how much. I think it might be like $99 to do it, but honestly, it's worth it. It's pretty cool to be able to get the full breakdown of your history. It's always good to know your history, and you can really connect with different people. They put you in contact with different people that you didn't even know were in your family. Like, my parents have met people, and like literally in person met up with people that we didn't even know were in our family through this. So yeah, like I said, I'll put the link down below. Also, like I said, if you want to know more details in terms of those slave owners and everything like that whole backstory, I have a blog post all about it, all written out with all the details if you are curious about that. I will have pictures of my results, a picture of the map where it kind of circles where everything is from, and kind of the full breakdown. I will have this on the blog post as well if you want to see, like I said, all the details. And I will also have pictures of Richard Bellamy if you want to see what my European ancestors looked like. I have pictures in the blog post, so definitely check that out. I will have it linked down below. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. Give it a thumbs up if you found it interesting, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!